Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Last First Date Radio, featuring interviews with experts in dating, relating, and mating in midlife. And now, here's your host, Sandy Weiner.
Hello, everybody. It's Sandy Weiner. I am so glad you're here with us today. I am the founder and the Chief Love Officer at LastFirstDate.com. I help women over 40 find epic love in the second half of life. I want to thank you all for joining me here today. This radio show is acclaimed. It's a featured show here on Blog Talk Radio, and we are all about healthy relationships, really relationships that work. So today we are really excited to welcome life coach and mediator Laura Richardson, and she's going to talk about how to move on after your breakup without bitterness or regret. I love that topic because so many people hold on to the pain from the past, and it's so important to let go and to forgive, really for you more than anything else. And I'm excited to dive into that topic in just a minute. As a dating coach, I love helping women date as the high-value women that they are in every other part of their lives. Women who are businesswomen, who are amazing at work, who are incredible moms and successful in every other part of their lives. They often struggle with the romantic aspect of their lives, their love life. And I have found the reasons why. There are some really, to me, glaring reasons why so many women are still single, and men. So I'm not just talking to women here, but that's my specialty. There are a lot of men who listen to the show. So if you're a guy or if you're happily coupled, I'm also glad you're here because there's always a lot to learn. We always should be learning about how to improve our relationships. And so the mistakes that we make, we don't see often because we're too close. And that's why people hire coaches and therapists to help them get some perspective. And so I have made it easy for you. I have given you that perspective. And if you want to learn what's sabotaging your dating success, and this is for men or women, I created a free guide where I explain the top 3 mistakes that midlife daters make and how you can turn them around and find lasting love. So if you'd like a copy, just go to lastfirstdate.com and you can sign up on my homepage. I also want to invite you to join my Facebook group. It's called Your Last First Date, and it is a fabulous place growing every single day. And women have come to celebrate finding love and to keep them going in a relationship, and they post questions about dating, love, and sometimes it's not even about that. It's about life. I mean, life is what happens while you're seeking love, and there's so much incredible support by me and through all the other women, the lovely women in the group. So if you'd like to join, I need to approve you because it's a private, closed group. But just go to Facebook and look for Your Last First Date in the groups section. And now I want to welcome our special guest, Laura Richardson. She is a licensed attorney in Texas, where she worked for 13 years on family law. And in 2015, she transitioned her career from lawyer to life coach. I can understand that transition. Her mission is to help clients find alternative solutions to their ongoing problems with their ex that are faster, less expensive, and more satisfying than going directly to the courthouse. Yeah, we need more of that, Laura. As a certified advanced mediator, she seeks to help people who are on both sides of the table feel like they had a fair chance to participate in shaping an agreement on how they move forward. I personally think that mediation is the way to go if you can do it. So welcome to the show, Laura. Really happy to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much, Sandy. I appreciate it. It's such an honor to meet you and get to know you and talk to your audience. I am super excited to be here, so thank you so much for inviting me to be on. And this is a topic that I love to talk about because it's so important. And I just feel like you mentioned, there are so many things that women do to there's that little barrier that they need to get over, and one of them could be, moving on without holding on to that type of bitterness and regret. And so, if I can help one person today, that's it's going to be an excellent day for me.
Oh, good. Well, I'm sure you'll help more than one person. And before we dive into how to move on, I wanted to have you share with the audience, if you don't mind, a little bit about your background in terms of breakup, divorce, like what led you to be so passionate about this work?
Really led me to be passionate. Growing up, I just saw the wreckage of divorce and how it affected my peers when I was a child. And unfortunately, my parents are divorced. They divorced when I was very young. And I always wanted to find a way to help women. And so I decided earlier on, probably about sixth grade, that I was going to be an attorney. And I thought the way that I was really going to impact women is to be a family lawyer, or some states call it matrimonial lawyer, but it's the same thing. And to really help women kind of move forward, protect their interests, but be able to move forward and walk in happiness and peace and joy that was always meant for them. And so that's really one of the reasons why I'm passionate. The second thing is I am actually divorced. I was married for 19 years. And I met my ex when I was 17, believe it or not. I was just entering college, and we met in college and dated until after I graduated from law school. And about a year later, we got married. And so just in case you're doing the math, that means I'm 47, okay?
I wasn't counting.
Yes, you don't. I'm just teasing. But so, I know what it's like. I mean, for me, it was a little bit different since I know the system, and I knew what to expect. And, you can't predict everything, but I think it might have made things a little bit easier for me. But I certainly understand just working with clients. I've been here in Texas since, for the past 13 years. And so, just walking alongside clients, helping them work through and just protect and be able to have what they need to be able to move forward and get, a fair outcome for them. But still, even the emotional side, I really thought I could serve my clients better as a life coach than I can as an attorney. And to be honest, it really spikes up my happiness meter, Sandy. So it really makes me happy. In this part of my life, I'm all about, Laura needs to be happy. So that's what I'm doing.
Well, I so agree with that. I mean, part of being a woman of value, and that's my whole thing, is finding your own source of happiness and passion. And when you can tap into that, not only are you happy, but people around you are inspired by you, and it's all good. It just produces really good karma. And it's interesting that you became a life coach, in that I've met many people both through the radio show and in real life who are, let's say they're in finance or in some other area. I have a friend a colleague who's an image consultant. All these people who help women, and they end up being more of a therapist than just doing their job, because there's an emotional piece to decluttering, to taking the clothes out of your closet and finding the right ones, and finding out why you hide behind the clothes you wear, why you don't value yourself enough to buy yourself clothes but buy for everybody else. And and I just recently met a woman who's a mediator and a financial consultant, and she is an amazing empowerment person for women. I mean, she will sit in a meeting where there was an attorney, she was telling me, who was so intimidating to the woman. He was like hovering over her and talking down to her. And she just sat down on the table in front of him, stared him in the face, and said, "Don't talk to her like that ever again, or I will publicize how you're acting right here, right now." I mean, she was like, wow. I mean business, and this woman's this teeny little thing, but boy, does she have a lot of power. So it's not just about law or finance or anything else. And when you can dive deeper, I keep using that word dive, but when you can go deeper, it's so much more impactful. So I think what you're doing is wonderful.
Yeah, it really is. And just like you said, I found myself, even after, perhaps the case was over, was kind of checking in. And even while the case was ongoing, I'd always gravitate, okay, this is what, life might, is starting to shape up and look like, and what are you going to do as far as, how do you see yourself, moving forward in your career or your personal life, or, the other family dynamics that you have going on, now that your life is looking this way, how does that all interconnect? And, it's just a piece that I really enjoyed. I just wasn't charging for it because it wasn't legal work, but it's really, like you said, just what made me happy. And just when you wake up and your heart's beating faster and, you enjoy what you do, it's not even work. So,
yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I used to remember, like, after my divorce, like, I would say I hit the ground running. I couldn't wait to get out of bed and, like, start writing down thoughts and write blog posts and create my book. And, like, it just was pouring out of me. And I think when you're tapped into that place, it's just so exciting. So let's talk a little bit more about your process. What I really wanted to hear was, like, did you have bitterness against your ex? Like, how did you, were you struggling with this, and how did you, if so, how did you come to heal?
I think even just from my parents' divorce, I didn't realize at the time, but I was kind of shoving down and masking over just regret and a lot of sorrow, and I guess bitterness probably is not too harsh of a word. And I didn't realize I kind of grew into it, an angry teenager and an angry young person after that. And I think that's kind of what my ex and I had in common, unfortunately. But I think over time, especially after I moved here to Texas, I had people who entered my life who really mentored me in learning how to let go of regret, recognizing it first, because like I said, a lot of it I really didn't recognize or had they put a label on it and recognize it for what it was. And once they were really able to kind of mentor me and walk alongside me to help me with that, I think I went through a process of a period of years. But I know definitely back in 2013, I got divorced in 2014, but in 2013 I really just had, I guess the best way to describe it is an awakening, and I really just started to do the hard work of, talking to people who I felt safe to speak to, because obviously you need to exercise wisdom when you're talking about very sensitive personal matters. And so I went to the very small circle of folks that I knew I could trust, and they just loved me with unconditionally and just put their arms around me. And it was such a time of healing and growth, and I was able to kind of separate myself from what was going on and really kind of recognize the dynamics that were going on. And that really helped me to kind of, I won't say kind of take the emotion out of it, but it really helped me to look at it from the bigger picture and to say, okay, this, needs to get fixed, and this doesn't, this needs to get fixed. And if it doesn't get fixed, then, there's not a whole lot of places that we can go. But I still need to love him as a person through it, even though I was falling out of love with him as a husband. And I kind of went through maybe like a 6-month period where, that was really kind of intense for me. But at the very end of it, when I really got to the point where I filed, I really felt like I had did a lot of the work of, kind of on the front end of it. And it really kind of, again, made the process a little bit easier. It made, even sometimes when he was acting out a bit, it wasn't something that I internalized. And I just realized, I just need to keep speaking positive words and speaking positive words of life over him and what I want to see and believe for the best for him. And, that just carried me, right over the mountain. So that's really my best advice of my personal walk, going and releasing bitterness and regret.
Yeah, it's like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies or whatever. It's just
that's right.
That's what most people do. They just hold on. And I once had a guest who was talking about an aunt of hers who had such bitterness towards her ex-husband until the day she died. She felt that letting go of it would give him something, and she refused to do that. And so she killed herself her whole life holding on to this and not being able to live the life that she was meant to live. So I think it's great that you did the work, and I love the positive approach, and it's really beautiful. So let's go into the nitty-gritty of it now, about setting the groundwork for removing bitterness and regret after a breakup or a divorce. What are the steps that people should take?
Well, one of the major things, or one of the first things that I always suggest is, for whatever reason your relationship ended, your marriage ended, just get it settled in your heart that it's really over. Because if you're constantly longing for that relationship, that usually promotes the growth of bitterness and regret in your mind and in your heart. And you don't want to keep feeding that, because if you feed it, it grows. And so a lot of times, too, the second thing that I suggest people do is they understand why they made the choices that they did to end up where they are today. And that is a big part of even forgiving yourself, finding out, what was the things that influenced us as children that shaped our views about relationship and marriage. Having an understanding to help us guard against the history of repeating the same mistakes. We don't want to keep attracting the same person who has the same negative personality traits that were toxic to us. And so we definitely don't want to do that. And again, forgive yourself for any choices that may not have been in your best interest. And it also, sometimes if you need to, it'll lead you to help you to forgive the adults in your life who might have failed you in your childhood. So if you had an emotional wounding, like I mentioned before, I was just wounded by my parents' divorce. I certainly don't hold that against them. But, sometimes if you just need to recognize that it's there. And once you recognize it, that's when you can start to do the hard work and deal with it. And then you can recognize and forgive yourself for your part of what might have went wrong in the relationship. And I had a lot that I had to forgive myself. I hate to say it, but I'm not perfect. And so I knew there were some things that I needed to I knew some things that I needed to work on character-wise and personality-wise, because I don't want to take all that stuff into my next relationship. And so that's one of the things that I like to do that. And so how to get rid of bitterness and regret, and how can you kind of guard against it coming back again, especially if you have a situation where your ex is acting out against you. Right now he may be sending mean-spirited text messages and emails and calling and hanging up and those types of things. I always tell women, don't feed into the drama, because it only encourages them to continue. It emboldens them to say, hey, I'm getting some attention, even though it's negative attention, and if I can bring some of the upset that I'm feeling to, my soon-to-be or my current, my ex-wife, then they sometimes get really a sense of self-satisfaction, a sense of feeling like they were able to exact revenge against you. And so you don't want to feed into that, and just recognize it for what it is. Okay, he's acting out. He needs, he doesn't, now I'm not saying that people need to take anybody else's verbal, abuse and all that, but, if you need to, handle him from arm's length, keep things, text messages and emails, and not speak to him on the phone, and not, try to limit as many times, as you see him in person, especially, if you're kind of exchanging the kids, then that's really something that I highly suggest that folks do. And, a lot of times I know it's not fair to say, okay, put on your big girl pants and be the bigger person in the situation, but, a lot of times that's really the only way that things are going to de-escalate and get to a place where it gets calmer, and you can, hopefully, if you're co-parenting with your ex, you can, get to a place where you can start to, when you need to speak about the kids, talk to them on the phone, if the situation requires, or, you don't have to, exchange angry messages and back and forth. And so if you can do that, it certainly saves your nerves, and your kids don't absorb what's going on, because, even if they're young and they don't have words for what they're sensing, kids can sense when there's upset and, disagreement and problems between their parents. And so if we can, help shield them from that as much as possible, then I certainly think it's worth, you just being the bigger person and just go ahead and do what needs to, what's required. Another important
I think people
step
should be the bigger person. Just to interrupt for 1 minute, I think we always should take the high road, and it's not just with somebody that you're having a contentious relationship with. It could be, let's say it's your child or a friendship, and this just came up the other day. I have a friend. We have a mutual friend together, and we've known each other since our first year in college. So for a long time, I've kept in closer contact with the one that I was talking to, and we were invited to something together. And my friend said, "I don't think I want to go. I was really hurt by her. She did something that I felt was really unkind, and I think had it been anyone else, she wouldn't have done it." And I said, "Actually, she's done it to me many times. It's not just you." And I prefer to take the high road. I like her daughter. It was a celebration for her daughter. And I'd like to spend time with you. Doing it with any projected, thank you from the other person. I'm not doing it for her. I'm really doing it because it is the high road, and just because, it's like two wrongs don't make a right. And I think we need to remember that throughout our lives, that it creates better karma when we move on and we don't hold on to the pain that somebody caused us. Sometimes you do break ties. You don't want to be around that person, and that's certainly a good choice when somebody's abusive. But I think, the co-parenting thing, and I just want to say one thing about that too, is that it's often really challenging to co-parent, and there's so many books that say the opposite. Like, all you have to do is sit down and come up with a great parenting plan, and both of you will take the high road and do what's best for the kids. And in my experience, that almost never happens. Often the problems you had in your marriage had to do with not being on the same page in parenting as one of the things that went wrong. And I think if people have the understanding that they're not flawed or horrible people because they can't see eye to eye with their ex, and sometimes you just have to set your own really clear guidelines for your kids and not at all rely on your ex to comply. And that's much more difficult when your kids are younger. So anyway, I just think that at some point you have to realize what your ex is capable of and accept the reality, just like you accept, just saying, see your ex for who he or she truly is. In terms of accepting that the relationship is over. And in terms of that, too, I've seen people who, once they labeled it, they knew, okay, this is never going to change. This is who he is. This is who I am. We do not belong together. This will not change, even though I've tried to change it for 10 years. It's not changing. So, right? So, I mean, I don't quit easily. So I stayed married for 23 years, and I was like, well, let me try this way of talking to him, and let me see if I can compromise here and compromise there, and then I was like left with so much compromise that I was missing pieces of me, and it still wasn't working. So that's unhealthy too. And I think that once you come up to that point and you say, okay, it is done, we are done. And I actually believe that when you're done, it's not in a place of anger anymore. It's a place of acceptance. And I think if you're still angry, you still have too much emotion tied to that person. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. I knew of a gentleman who was in his late 50s who was married. He'd gotten a divorce. He was married for about 5 years. He had been divorced about 18 years. They did not have any children together. He had not heard from her in 18 years. But it seems like every chance he got, whenever he had the opportunity, he would direct the conversation and somehow work into how he was emotionally wounded by his ex-wife, and you would see his demeanor and his countenance change, and you would see this kind of anger overtake him, and he would just start spewing, and he just got to be absolutely toxic to be around. And he just would not let go. And the last time I spoke to him, he was having a pain in his gut so bad it was waking him up out of a sound sleep almost every night. You don't want to be that guy, and that's what can happen. I'm no doctor, but I know it can manifest in your body. It can.
Yes.
And
stress can, holding on to anger and regret can. I mean, all of that, it just eats away at you. And I so agree. And as a woman who's dating after divorce, and I see it with my clients as well, those men who just start out a conversation telling you how horrible their ex was, bye-bye. Because what they are doing is they're dumping on you. They are victims, not taking control of their lives. And so when you say, I had to look within and see what my behaviors were that contributed, that's maturity, taking responsibility for what your contribution was. Not only is it maturity, but it's going to help you attract a much different partner who is more suitable for you, because you're going to attract somebody who's also responsible for their emotions. And so we attract whatever it is that we put out there.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about other ways to forgive the ex, because I know that some people listening to this are thinking, well, I could never forgive my ex, and why would I want to do that? So let's talk a little more about that.
Okay, yeah, and I think a large part of that is how the culture in our society defines forgiveness. They consider it, you're throwing in the towel, you're admitting everything was your fault, you're putting all the blame on yourself, you're admitting that the other person was right, or what they did or said was okay, and that you deserved it, and that there's no consequences for your ex. And I think that's the absolute worst definition of forgiveness. And so no wonder there's so much pushback and resistance to it. But I think a better definition of it is giving up the right to feel angry or offended about what happened to you, even though if you have an absolute right to be angry or feel offended by it. And when I say give it up, I'm talking about no more rehearsing in your head about what happened, no more imagining in your mind how things would have been different if you just would have had the opportunity to do this, or if you would have thought to say that, what you really wanted to say, and how things would be different. Then your ex wouldn't have gotten the best of you, and there's no more calling up your friends, telling them what a jerk your ex is, and how you wish, he would just disappear. All those things stir up anger and keep you trapped in the moment. Forgiveness is not putting a rubber stamp on what they did and say that it was good and right. But what it is, it doesn't mean that there's no consequences. Sometimes you can not hold bitterness, but still file for divorce. You can not hold bitterness, but if you need to file charges against your ex, if the situation requires, if you're not safe, then that's what you need to do. You're not mutually exclusive, and then sometimes that's the only way that your ex gets help. Sometimes that's the only way to keep you safe. And sometimes it's really the wake-up call that your ex needs to be able to realize what they're doing is wrong, and then it won't be tolerated. And so just like you said before, why you should forgive, it's really the truth is setting you free and for you to take back your happiness. Because anger releases, all kinds of chemicals. One of them is cortisol. It's that fight or flight chemical. And so if you're always angry, your body always feels like you're going to have to fight or you're going to have to leave quickly, So, it ages you prematurely, and who wants to sign up for that?
Right.
It weakens your immune system, and it has a negative effect on your nervous system, and over time it just works against you. And so, also when you're angry all the time, it takes a lot of energy. It wears your body down. It makes you tired. You're operating in a low frequency and negative energy, and people will start to feel that it's toxic to be around you. If you're always, it's what you're always meditating on, it's what you're always speaking about. I'll just tell you this quickly of another situation where a gentleman who had just gotten a divorce, and I'm African American, and so was he, and and it wasn't until we were on our first date, and he was like, I don't normally date sisters, and I said, okay.
Okay.
What does that mean? And when I started to prod, he was letting me know, or he was confessing the condition of his heart, and to say that he thought it might be something different about me, that would set me apart. But the thing is, as soon as he gets offended by something, then he defaults back to his core belief, which is, black women aren't in his best interest, or that he doesn't get along with black women, or that they are against him. And so, you just have to be careful.
Yeah.
Yes. And so you just have to be careful.
There's a lot of that out there.
Go. Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
That's something that really, really upsets me, is to see how people form the wrong conclusions about their dating past, that it's going to project into the future. And, then people come up with the craziest things, like I don't date people. I had a client who doesn't date people who have apartments, because she had an issue with an apartment, and I had to unpack it for her. Like, what are you talking about, girl? Apartments? Yeah. What does that have to do? How's that on the deal breaker list? And so it really wasn't about an apartment, obviously. It was about something much deeper. So we have to really understand, what is it that hurt us? What part did we play in it? And otherwise, you see, so often people get remarried, end up in second, third relationships after divorce or a breakup, and it's the same person with a different face. It's the same arguments. It's the same frustration, and they're still blaming the other instead of looking within. And you change your vibration, so you talked about vibrations and the low-level vibration of anger, and boy, is it toxic. And when you change it to positive and joy and emanating, radiating happiness from a true, authentic place, everybody wants to be around you, and it's actually one of the things that men look for in a woman. It's what makes you irresistible. So, there's so many benefits. So it's such important information, and I will blog about this and put a link up on my blog, and I'll send you a copy of that, Laura, and everybody else can go there and take a look. And a look and a listen, so I'll put on all the key points that you just discussed, and if you can share how people can find you if they want to learn more.
Yes, they can learn more. They can go to my website at www.howtomoveonafterdivorce.com. They can also follow me on Facebook at facebook.com/Laura, Laura, Diane, Dianne, Richardson, Richardson, and they can find me there.
Awesome.
So, yes. Well, if I had just another, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Did you want to say one more thing to conclude?
Yeah, just one more thing really quickly. Some people ask me, well, how do you start to forgive? Okay, you take a step back and you really look at what's going on. How this is really just kind of a plan to keep you trapped in pain and distract you from moving forward. Take a look at your ex to see who he truly is. What were the struggles that he had, that he may be dealing with that are hindering him from moving forward, and that really help you to detach from the emotion of it. And the second thing is what you mentioned before, is operating in the opposite spirit, speaking words of encouragement over them, speaking out what you want to say and what you want to hear from them and what you want to see, the behavior you want to see from them, and radiate that peace and that love when he's around you. When you feel like cursing him out, speak words of life over him, and it might also include some counseling. You might have to seek out a licensed professional counselor to help you to do that. But when you start broadcasting that positivity and that light, it really shifts the atmosphere. And so that's really one of the ways you can start to forgive.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for all this wonderful wisdom you shared with us today, Laura. And best of luck to you as you move on after your divorce, and helping others do the same. And thank you all for listening today to Last First Date Radio, and I hope you all go on your last first date very soon. Have a great day.